What's good? Lucky Lefty Podcast. Your boy Shaun Davis. Left is coming shortly. Special guest coming up about 25 minutes from now. Bruce Feldman, Athletic Big Noon Kickoff, Fox Sports. Brought to you by Onora Whiskey, OnoraWhiskey.com. It is that premium American whiskey, OnoraWhiskey.com. And if you drink, by all means, make sure that you do so responsibly. Don't forget, exclusively at CFB Nation, the audio edibles each and every day. Go check it out right now. Apple Podcasts and Spotify, CFB Nation, Lucky Lefty Podcast, home of the misguided passion. You already know. We spin it different. We're going to talk CJ Carr, Sam Hartman, Notre Dame offense, a lot in the second half. No, I was on time today. This is all left. I'm sitting here waiting on left. Had to do my research on these articles for Bruce Feldman when he joins us. LL question of the day. Who will be the face of the Notre Dame defense? Who will be the face of the Notre Dame defense? The reason I ask that is because I personally am witnessing, as a Chicago White Sox fan, the keys of the White Sox being turned over from Tim Anderson to Luis Robert Jr. Like, it's a wrap. Tim Anderson was like a face of Major League Baseball 2 years ago. Face of the White Sox. And I'm watching all of that change right before my very eyes. And I asked myself, Isaiah Foskey was the face last year. Who was the face this year? And do you really want a defensive back to be the face of your defense? It could be preferential. But just think about last year. You had Will Anderson. Then you had the defensive line for Georgia. The defensive lineman for Ohio State this year. Usually you're thinking linebacker, defensive lineman when you're thinking face of a really dominant defense. So if Ben Morrison is the face, who else can emerge in that front seven? That could be a tease to one of our storylines for defense. Who can emerge in that front seven? Will it be a youngster on the come? Will it be someone that has had promise but is yet to realize that promise? Could it be someone that has constantly been consistent, knocking at the door, and finally breaks through? It's a lot of candidates. Looking forward to see if somebody can actually break through and be that guy. So I didn't know Sam Hartman was playing defense. I see someone put Sam Hartman. I didn't know Sam Hartman was playing defense. Jason Onye, Joshua Burnham. It's going to be interesting, though. It's going to be interesting. So, fall camp storylines. We did offense yesterday. Defense, number one. Can the Notre Dame secondary be as good as they need to be? Number one storyline for me. This is what I mean by that. whether it's via the transfer portal with the help they got, whether it's Benjamin Morrison continuing his ascension, whether it's Cam Hart finally being healthy, Jaden Mickey finally taking the next step, Christian Gray and Micah Bell making an impact as Benjamin Morrison did in his freshman year. Clarence Lewis being someone that they can use in the slot, on the outside, maybe at safety and sub packages. There's a lot to work with for Mike Mickens, Chris O'Leary, and Al Golden in that secondary. And that secondary is going to be tested. The Ohio State wide receiver corps is going to test Notre Dame secondary. It's going to be some pretty good one-on-one battles for 4 quarters. Now we understand the front 7 shutting down Travion Henderson in the running game. It's going to be key. Make Kyle McCord and that offense one-dimensional, right? Becomes an easier game. However, there are still some talented players that can just flat out make plays. So how good can they really be? Can they come up with a classic game against Ohio State? Can they come up with a classic game that I think they're going to need against Caleb Williams and USC? Can they be consistent? Can they take a quarterback like Riley Leonard, who's highly efficient, that doesn't make mistakes, and can they just stay locked in for 4 quarters? How good can they be? Most people would think that they're a top 10 secondary. I've seen publications have them top 10 ranked anywhere from like 7 to 10. I think that's fair. Alabama secondary gets a lot of Kool-Aid McKinstry is talented, but Kool-Aid McKinstry grabs a lot. And just Alabama secondaries are always bumped up a little bit higher than they deserve, in my opinion. However, the safety position might be the tail sign for the secondary and Al Golden's use of the safety position. The Cam Hart comment, I would disagree. It's hard to call somebody inconsistent when they play injured the majority of the time. That's just unfair, in my opinion. Thank you, Jeff Luke. You're darn right. Happy Connor Bedard Day. Let me tell you something. I'm glad you said that. This is what made me think about the face, right? Also made me think about the apparel deal as we bring Left in. The number one storyline defense for me, Left, was how good can the secondary be, right? LL question of the day, who's going to be the face of the defense? Last year was Isaiah Foskey coming into the season. Who is it this year? A lot of people say Benjamin Morrison. No, you can't say whatever the reason. You can't say somebody's injured, plays through injury because they're the best option, and then judge their performance and call them inconsistent. You can't. Right. You can't do that. You can't.
Can't do that.
That's like saying, "Oh, hey, Left, make me a cake. Make me a chocolate cake. I'm giving you half the ingredients." but I want it to be as good as it can be. And then I sit down and judge it and say, "Oh, this cake is horrible." But I know you only had half the ingredients.
See?
I know you're handicapped going in. You can't judge that. You can't. You just can't. And that's why, in spite of that, Cam Hart still gets a second, third round grade from scouts because scouts know when he's right, he's very good. When he's injured, you can tell. And he's been injured 60 to 70% of the time. He was injured going into fall camp last year, never got healthy. No, I'm not making excuses. I'm telling you facts. If you don't want to take the facts, that's on you. If you don't want to take the facts, that's on you. When Cam Hart is healthy, he's a very good cornerback. When he's not healthy, he's not.
Yeah.
As simple as that. And I keep telling people, if people actually knew the depths to which Cam Hart over the last 2 seasons has played with injury, severe injury, that no defensive back should be out there playing with. No, no defensive back should be on the field handicapped the way he's been handicapped, but he's had to play because there was nobody else. He's had to play. And he hasn't asked to come out. He hasn't complained. He hasn't done anything. That's it. So people that know that actually respect the effort and don't sit there and judge, oh, he's inconsistent when they know what's going on. When he's healthy, go watch the Wisconsin game. He's really good. He was healthy that season. He was really good. When he started getting injured, it is what it is. So stop. People, man, they take these low-hanging fruit situations. Right? That's like me.
Yeah.
Tim Anderson, right? Tim Anderson's been scuffling for the last year. He's had 4 injuries the last year. The man was the AL bat champion that had the most hits in baseball for 3 seasons. He had a core injury, a hamstring injury, and a hand injury in the last calendar year. And now he's struggling. Oh, that boy, man, Tim Anderson's really inconsistent. No, he's injured. He's a really good player that's battling injuries, and he's being affected.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It's just the fact of how real sports is that nobody's gonna give you the benefit of the doubt once you step in between the white lines. They're assuming that you 100%, and if you don't play like that, you can't lean on the injury. That's why you see guys sitting out now with low management, like Kawhi Leonard.
So,
He ain't 100%.
and then this is the crazy thing that becomes a problem, right? Oh, you're sitting out, low management. Okay, so do you want me to play through the injury and be below my level of your expectation, and then you call me inconsistent, or do you want me to sit out until I can do what I can do, and then you complain about the fact that I don't play? But you can't win. You can't win with fans. You can't. You can't. You just can't.
You got to look at it in the vacuum. You know, a player at his best is the vacuum we would have to look at, right? Because are we discounting injuries? Are we saying that? I mean, that's a part of the game, and you know, obviously, the fans aren't going to give you excuses, but the reality of it is, playing not 100%, you're not going to look the best that you could look when you are 100%. That's just reality.
Yeah.
Fandom is less empathetic because there's ulterior things that they're invested in that requires you to be 100%. And when you're not living up to that side of it, like expected,
mm-hmm.
They're not gonna. It's just it is what it is. Now,
and that is actually that could be a sub point of Camp storyline. Cam Hart's health. If we're gonna talk secondary, Cam Hart's health is huge for multiple reasons.
that's right.
Huge because Benjamin Morrison, I don't think teams are gonna go after him first.
Right. I mean, Ohio State went after Cam in the first game.
Absolutely.
And Ben Morrison wasn't even on the field yet.
So that goes to tell you, man. And if you actually watch the Ohio State game, Cam gave up that He gave up that one touchdown to Abuka on the comeback, right? Other than that,
Couple big third downs.
yeah. But all in all, and he was hurt. He was never right. He was never right. He barely practiced during fall camp. He barely practiced a full practice. And it was a core. It was left. You're a defensive back with a core injury. Bro, that ain't it. That ain't it. And that's the truth of the matter. The depth at the defensive back position was questionable, which is why he had to move to defensive back and immediately become the number one option from wide receiver. Where do they do that at, Left? Big time programs don't do that. We need you to switch over here and be the number one defensive back.
That's right. And that's crazy for an elite program.
That's crazy. We need you to switch over here and be the number one defensive back. It's crazy. So that secondary for me, it's a lot of promise. I'm just interested in Chris O'Leary and how these safeties perform. Xavier Watts, another kid with promise, right? Another kid with promise, range, playmaking abilities. You see it in the Gator Bowl. What is he going to be? Can he put it all together? Right? Not only that, Ramon Henderson, my man sitting up here telling everybody he can run a 4.3 in the off season. Word? Okay. I need to see it. You run 4.3, 4.4? All right, let's see it. Go make some plays. Be in position. Make sure you cover your man. Don't give up leverage on key third downs. 3rd and 7 when Marshall's basically trying to get off the field, throwing the ball to a flat, to a tight end, and you blow the coverage. Come on, man. That can't happen anymore. If this secondary can scratch the surface on the promise that we think they have, Notre Dame's going to be in good shape against Ohio State and USC.
Yes, and a lot of that is because we have a better identity than what the unknowns were of last year. And I think that's going to translate in a game where we're going to have to score points. Last year, we were looking for where the points were going to come from because we were thinking if we can keep Ohio State under, 28, which we got 21. Which we predicted that if we can get around there, we'll be good. Now the expectation is we are going to have at least 35. And we hold them and make it a shootout. So I feel a lot better in a situation like that than going into it where I don't know where the numbers are going to come from.
Absolutely.
There's going to be some touchdowns from the receivers.
Yeah.
Throwing that. There's going to be a receiver or two that got some touchdowns in the Ohio State game, and I feel way better about that than I did last year.
And Joshua Finn, look, I agree. You know the only thing for Thomas Harper? He's been injured the entire spring. They say all of that. He made plays. He was injured last year for Oklahoma State. He transfers in. Injuries, nagging injuries all spring. So now we have to worry about him and whether or not he can be healthy going into the fall. I agree. It all comes down to health for this secondary. It all comes down to health. Christian Gray will get action.
Yes.
Christian Gray's going to get action. I don't know how early, but I fully expect Christian Gray to get action. Second storyline. This is simple, Left, and I'm going to let you ride. The damn linebackers. That's it. That's the storyline. The damn linebackers. I don't know who the linebackers are going to be, but they need to get it done. They just need, the position needs to get it done. I don't care if it's freshmen, sophomores, seniors, juniors, you lose Prince Colley. The damn linebackers in bold with exclamation marks, multiple exclamation marks. The damn linebackers. Second storyline of the defense.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that is going to be apparent early on. And we're going to see it if the linebackers make a difference from the first game.
Mm-hmm.
It's the middle of the defense.
Mm-hmm.
Even on the aspect, are we going to see young guys get in there? Because I want to see that. You've been high on Drake Bowen and Jaden Osbury for a minute. So,
you know why? You know why? Because I actually saw a coach coaching them as if, look, it didn't matter whether or not they were going to play it down. They're being coached as if you're playing.
Yeah.
Prepare to play.
That's
Max
right.
Bullock's man, when I tell you Max Bullock's coached these dudes so hard in the spring. He's not coaching them like you're a freshman. You're a freshman. I'll give you time to learn. Come here. Do that rep again. In front of everybody. Now you still didn't do it right. Come here. Do it again. You're going to get this right. You're going to act like you're a starter. Being coached with intention. And I'm like, okay. All right. Now I'm excited because I haven't seen this at this position with the youngsters. It was always give them time. No, he put emphasis. He put a fire under their butt. Man, we're not doing that freshman stuff. You prepare to play every practice.
And that's
prepare as you're playing.
That's how you set the natural order, right? Set the natural order of having a process in which you're rinsing and repeating great linebackers, rinsing and repeating great linemen, great running backs. How else is a school like Alabama, who takes running backs off the recruiting streets, and turns them into starting linebackers? Mm-hmm. How else can you do that other than if you were coaching with intention from the beginning? You're not just switching because it's a spot to fill. You're not switching them because they look good. You're switching them with intention that you're going to be the linebacker that starts for Alabama. Mm-hmm. Happen to be the running back right now. And look at how it turns out. They become first-round pick All-Americans, this and that.
Yeah.
It is the same thing that you want to see with our linebackers.
Yeah.
Except they're linebackers. They're not converting. They play a lot of things, but they're linebackers. So it's even better.
Yeah.
And has to be along the lines of what Marcus Freeman was talking about from a physicality standpoint, is that middle of the defense, linebackers got to be physical. Mm-hmm. The whole having backup running backs averaging 2,000 yards a game, that's a non-physical qualifier.
Yeah.
That's coming straight from your linebacker.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So physicality has got to be important. So to have that intention early for those young guys, they know how serious it is and how close it is for them to be on the field. Because they
Lucky Podcast. We have Bruce Feldman coming up momentarily. We're talking about camp storylines. But Notre Dame, a month out from fall camp, did offense yesterday, defense today, number one, secondary. How good can they be? Because they have to be really good in some clutch games this year. Number two, the goddamn linebackers, because the production hasn't been there. What is it going to look like this year? And number three, before we bring Bruce Feldman in, second year of Al Golden. We heard how much they learned, right? Al Golden has taught so much. These players learn so much from Al Golden, what he brings and how he teaches. All right, that's fine and dandy. That excuse is out the window. Second year for these defensive players and these youngsters in the system. They should play much faster. They should be more productive. Al Golden, what do you have? What's the second year look like? That's the third storyline going into this fall camp. We'll dig into that a little bit more. But without further ado, we want to bring our special guest into the Lucky Lefty podcast. You can catch him at The Athletic, doing a fantastic job of covering college football, if I do say so myself, this summer. You can catch him on Fox, Big Noon Kickoff, coverage for Fox Sports. It's the one and only, our guy, Bruce Feldman. He's with us on the Lucky Lefty podcast once again. Bruce, how are you doing this morning?
That's right.
Hey, guys, good to be on with you.
Always glad to have you join us. And, you know, Notre Dame fans pretty much have told us, make sure you ask Bruce these two questions, right? So the first question they want to know, and I'm interested, Bruce, because one of our storylines offensively yesterday was, who the hell is Jared Parker? Like, we just don't know. We don't know what this offense is going to look like. He comes from a lot of different styles. He's been in a lot of different styles of offense. Is it going to be your traditional Notre Dame offense, where it's run, tight ends, a little bit of passes to the special wide receivers? Or is he going to open it up with these young wide receivers that he has that are promising on the roster in the freshman and sophomore class, and then use the running backs a little more sparingly? And my question to you is, you guys rank tiers of the quarterbacks, and you have Sam Hartman in tier 4. You said you gave a thought to him being in tier 3. Would you have given him tier 3 if he was still in the same system at Wake Forest, and him coming into a situation with some unknowns? Did it give you a little bit of pause to say, you know what, let's just leave him in tier 4? Because Notre Dame fans are like, how is he a tier 4 quarterback?
Well, I do want to clear this part up. So a tier 4 quarterback like Drake May, who a lot of people think, you know, it was basically Caleb Williams was in a class by himself.
Mm-hmm.
I think the question was, is Sam Hartman in the tier 3 cluster or in the tier 4 cluster? To me, Stu Mandel, who I work with and do the Audible podcast with, he took more issue with the number of interceptions. That wasn't as much of an issue to me, because I thought he had really mastered the offense at Wake Forest, the slow mesh and all that it comes with that. But I thought he was in that 3 to 4 range. And some of what you said, you know, right now, you know, he committed when Tommy Rees was running the offense. We know what Tommy Rees's offense looks like.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really know what Jared Parker's offense is going to look like. Now, I've talked to Neil Brown, who worked with him at West Virginia, and some other guys, and he's a really well-regarded assistant coach, but we just really don't know. And the other piece of this is, you had mentioned young receiving core. I think that is a question mark, at least at this point. It's an unknown, you know, from the people I know inside the Notre Dame program. I know that they expect big things from JD Price. He got hurt right before the start of last year. I've known Dylan McCullough for a long time. I know how excited he was about him going in. Like, I get it. You lose a really productive running back and ends up going to LSU. I think they'll be fine there. Pretty sure they're going to be fine on the offensive line. I do like the hire that Marcus made there, because it was a guy he goes way back to in terms of working together when they were around each other at Ohio State. It's the receiving core that, look, I think it'll be good. I think it'll be better, but, you know, they didn't even have a lot of bodies last year going into it. So that's part of why, you know, when I looked at it, and Stu and I disagreed on this, but I was like, look, Devin Leary had an amazing 2021 season, then gets hurt. Now he goes to Kentucky. I know what their offense looks like because I saw what Liam Cohen did 2 years ago there. Whereas this is a little more unknown, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm interested to see. I think Sam's really smart. I think he's very talented. I think it's a great addition for Notre Dame, but it's not like you're saying to me, oh, he's going in and Garrett Riley is the OC, or he's going in and we know it. We just don't know what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting. It's exciting though at the same time because what we've seen in college football the last couple of years is that an experienced quarterback, 26 and up, sometimes 28, usually makes a good appearance for a football team that's on the rise. Like we've seen it with Georgia being managed very well by Stetson Bennett. We've seen older guys that, especially like a Jack Cohn, coming in as a bench player to come to Notre Dame with just having the experience of being in college football and raising the level of Notre Dame to an 11-win team. I think there's something to Sam being as old as he is that you can kind of hang your hat on him being pretty successful in a better way that we're looking for moving forward this year.
Yeah, and he is super smart. I know Dave Clawson really well and have talked to him a lot about the slow mesh and all the concepts and all that comes with that. I think people just look at it as like, oh, it's, ride or die, decide forever, but it's a lot more that goes into it. And he really mastered it. And you look at some of the games, like when they went toe to toe with Clemson, it's a hard team to keep that defensive line at bay and some of the challenges that go with it, but he lit them up. He lit up a lot of teams that had, look, and some of these defenses Notre Dame knows well, because they're, for all intents and purposes, got a lot of ACC, not roots, but a lot of ACC overlap to them. So I think he knows, and this is, one of the things I heard about his process was like, I know a lot of these teams are going to play because I've played them, so I just think it's tricky when the OC change happened when it did. I'm very, like, one of the better subplots to me in college football this year is, what does the Notre Dame offense look like? Because it's largely an unknown. Again, I go back to, like, I would not at all be surprised if JD Price turns out to be a star, right? And we know they're going to be really good on the offensive line because they have what we think will be a first round offensive line, and they have some real big physical guys. It's just, can they take the next big step, right? Because, even when Ian Book was there, he was a really productive quarterback and they did a lot of good things, but it was like, okay, they're good enough to be a playoff contender. Can they punch through to the next step? And that's a big step. Obviously last year, they really had to rebuild and come out of it, and I think find their footing. And again, I caught the beginning of what you guys are talking about with Al Golden. I do think, there's some question marks about, like, okay, how good can they be on that side of the ball, right? And so I think we're going to have to find out what their identity is in both places, to be honest.
Man, we can stop right there. Going into your second year, most coaches would like to have an established identity. By the way, I love what you guys said when you were on Move the Sticks. And I thought it was very profound, because a lot of people are not comfortable in their skin. And I'll respect Jim Harbaugh for this. He is who he is. He went to Stanford. He said, we're going to be the bully of the Pac-12. He went to Michigan. He said, hey, we're going to become the bully of the Big Ten. And they practice to that. They recruit to that. He coaches to that. And you know what you get with Michigan. You can talk about all the other, do they have enough speed, talent to beat Georgia and the big teams? I know one thing. They have enough right now to dominate Ohio State back-to-back years. Convincingly. So, and when you guys pointed that out, when you were talking about him and how much respect he deserves, I think about what you just said, identity. And Marcus Freeman going into his second year as a head coach, I would want my second year to be about that identity being established. And as you just pointed out, there are some things offensively and defensively that you just don't know from an identity standpoint with this team. Do you see that being a problem, or do you think they still have enough to kind of overcome that?
I don't see it as a problem. I just see it as really still an unknown, because like taking a step back from this, I remember getting to know Marcus a little bit when he was finishing up at Ohio State. And what you had was a really charismatic guy who, in a lot of ways, you could see him. Like, I think Notre Dame, and I don't know how much he has embraced this or not, but like they have done a really good job of showcasing. You see him on social media. You see, like, he is I could see how he would resonate with a lot of recruits in this day and age, because he is a younger, there's never a bad photo of Marcus, right? It's funny when I worked on a story of that, he was one of the people involved with it at Ohio State. We had like 4 other players who were getting ready for the draft, and it was almost like a modeling shoot that you'd see from GQ. And I remember our photo editor was with us, and she was like, she was very impressed with Marcus, and just kind of like, he got it, kind of thing. And I think what is going to be interesting to see is, look, his college coach at Ohio State was one of the most successful college coaches of that era. Was terrific at the lower divisions, then goes to Ohio State and wins a national title early. And he had an identity. Jim Tressel absolutely had an identity.
Yeah.
And so I think as Marcus gets here, what is fascinating to me is, whether you like it or not, so much of what you are as a head coach, at least in terms of how you transition, is the person you follow. He's following Brian Kelly. Now, he worked with him for 1 year. That's not a long time. But Brian Kelly is a 63-year-old guy from the Northeast who has a very specific kind of persona. And he's a really good college football coach, no doubt about it. But I think, sometimes you showcase what may be different, because as much as it was successful, it wasn't getting them where they ultimately wanted to go. And saying all that to get to this point, I think for Marcus, he wasn't in South Bend that long before he got this huge job. I think it is going to be totally a lot of learning on the job. And that's not a knock. That happens to all first-time head coaches, but I think it's especially going to happen at such a big job, right? It's not like just he got a Power 5 job. He got like the Cadillac of Power 5 jobs. And, who does he lean on? Right now, I know from everything I'd heard that, his offensive line coach and their family's kind of connected, I think years ago. And I think Al Golden can be a good asset to him, because, a lot of old coaches definitely respect Al Golden. And I know a bunch of guys who wanted to hire him at certain points. And I think, he has been a head coach, obviously, and been a head coach at a high academic place on top of that, which is good. I think there are certain guys that Marcus will absolutely lean on, but ultimately we're going to see his identity, keep growing and going, and where it gets to, because I think his identity can be one thing in recruiting and how it can resonate. I absolutely think it will, but ultimately it's like, what we were talking about, Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is 60. And Jim Harbaugh had 15 years in the NFL, and then he got to University of San Diego, where nobody was paying attention to what he was doing. And then he got to Stanford, where really nobody else was paying attention, until he started, kicking over chairs. And then all of a sudden it was like, okay, all right, now we got him a little bit. But so where is Marcus in that time frame? I think I'd be optimistic based on what I know about him, but it's probably going to take some more time, because you're having a guy who's not just figuring out who he's going to be a head coach, but he's also doing that at a place and in a time of NIL and transfer portal and all this other stuff that it's different.
Bruce Feldman joins us right here on the Lucky Lefty podcast. We transition to the future of the quarterback position at Notre Dame, and it's something that I think halfway through the season, I give Marcus Freeman a lot of credit for identifying this is not it. This quarterback room, this is not it. We have to correct this right now. And he knew, talked to the quarterbacks even before the season was over, and said, look, we're going to the portal. I want to let both of you guys know we're upgrading here. But we talk about the Elite 11. In my opinion, Bruce, your article that you wrote about CJ Carr, where you raved about what you saw with this young man and compared him to being the best pure passer to probably hit Notre Dame since Jimmy Clausen. I think the surprise performance of Kenny Minchie last year at the Elite 11 further bolsters that, to have both of those young guys in the quarterback room and give a bright future to the quarterback room at Notre Dame.
Yeah, it's interesting. So with the story that we ran yesterday at the Athletic on CJ and how he looked at the Elite 11. So I spent a couple days at the camp. It's pretty much in my backyard here in Southern California, and did a story about my takeaways from it. And I probably mentioned 10 quarterbacks and a couple other players who weren't quarterbacks who were also there as receivers. And the story went up, I think, on a Saturday, and I think I was away, on a family trip with like my son's had a soccer tournament or something. And so I didn't really look at the comments or anything. Mm-hmm. And I noticed on social media, like one or two people had asked me about how did CJ Carr look, because he wasn't mentioned in the original story. And I was like, he was solid. I thought he looked good. And that was kind of it, because I wasn't just really I wasn't in the comments of my story or whatever. And then my editor was like, hey, if you can come back, do you want to write more about CJ Carr? Because you got a ton of questions, and people at Notre Dame, not people at Notre Dame, Notre Dame fans were ticked off. Why did you not mention him? What was whatever? And I was like, oh, okay. And the reason why was when I went there, Dylan Raiola is the number one ranked quarterback prospect in the country, an overall prospect. And it's the second time I've seen him in person, and he's really impressive. He looks like a 25-year-old man. He almost looks like a 25-year-old linebacker. I
told you he's huge. I told you, Shaun, he's huge. It's like
he is huge, big lower body. He's almost 6'3". Everything looked easy.
Hair and all that.
And look, Malik could speak to this better than me, but a lot of times at those settings, kids, and they're still kids, are trying to throw the ball so hard it's almost like they're squeezing the air out of it, because they're around other, I don't know if it's other alphas or just other highly ranked guys. They know people are watching every little thing. It's not, it's not necessarily like they're not in a game setting. And what I noticed with him was everything was easy for him, and everything looked easy for him, right? The other quarterback who really shined was Julian Sayin, who's from down here. He's from Carlsbad, California. He's an Alabama commit who was highly regarded, but he was not close to a 5-star guy at that point. And you just watched him in the first couple of things you saw, and you're like, whoa, he's very, like, everything was on point. Everything was in rhythm. Everything was like he was attacking everything. It was like he was like surgical in how he did it. And I remember coming this guy is going to become a 5-star off of this. Like, because I know a lot of people are watching, and it's the summer evaluation. And he ended up winning the MVP of the camp and of all the quarterbacks. And subsequently this morning, they did bump him up to 5-star, and he's now the number 2 ranked quarterback in the country behind Raiola. And then there was like a handful of other guys who were like 3-star guys who were like, I don't even know who that guy is. And they're like, oh, that's Will Hammond. He's a 3-star. He's going to Texas Tech. And then you keep noticing them. And there was like probably 5 other guys who fit in that category. So it's like the thing was basically about the top guys, and then these other guys who maybe you didn't know. As a shorter quarterback who is a really good athlete from TCU, a kid from Nebraska who I think was ranked in the 30s among quarterbacks, who was really accurate, and a kid who spent 1 year as a quarterback and had been a receiver before that. He was committed to Florida State, who, you saw some flashes from him. It wasn't all great, but it was like he was intriguing. So that was kind of the story. And then when my editor said that, I was like, oh, I can definitely write about CJ, because CJ was good, but it was like he went in there as like the number 3 or number 4 quarterback, ranked guy. So it wasn't like he kind of held serve to me. He wasn't as impressive as Julian Sayin, but so I was like, well, let me talk to a bunch of the coaches who work at the Elite 11 and who are around them. And so that's what I did. And they were pretty glowing. I thought, Devin Gardner, who's a Michigan guy, who's a former 5-star quarterback once upon a time too, had said, look, I've known him since he was a little kid because he's Lloyd Carr's grandson. And, I'm a Michigan guy. And he said, I knew he had a baseball background, and there was a lot of stuff from the baseball thing the training where you could see it, like, you know, even the off platform kind of Mahomes kind of slinging from all angles. He said that's a lot of stuff that you're trying to work with quarterbacks now. He's got that. He's really accurate. He goes, the one thing I thought I talked to him about was Julian Sand came out here aggressive and he was going for it and he looked really confident and he was just firing it. And he goes, felt like he was a little reserved early on in the camp, this being CJ. And it was like, just get it, just go out, you know, like, and I think he's like that. You know, George Whitfield told me he saw him at their regional in Massillon, Ohio. And he goes, man, everything was on target. And he was like that. And he goes, people really like what they see on his film. Just in the beginning of the camp, you know, the first day, I don't know if it was a little hesitant, but he wasn't quite as sharp, certainly as Sayin and some other guys. But as people see in the story in The Athletic now, there's a lot to like, especially Quincy Avery, you know, who's now one of the guys who helps train Jalen Hurts, and, you know, some other really big time quarterbacks in the NFL, said, I loved maybe most about watching how the other people at the camp interacted with him and they gravitated around him. He goes, to me, that bodes well, because then you see the leadership, you see that some of those intangible qualities that I think carry forward in college. And that is an absolute thing, because I've covered the Elite 11 for 2 decades. And there are a handful of quarterbacks who come in there really hyped, who almost like are a little aloof or whatnot. And some of those guys, usually it follows through and you see it in college where maybe they don't live up to the hype.
It's amazing because we read all the publications and the stories, and we tried to be, as we reported about it, we tried to be even. You know, there were some ups and downs. People had different perspectives on his performance. And people got upset with us because we said, look, we didn't care where he placed. That wasn't our concern. We knew he was 3, 4, 5 in that range. And like you said, he held serve. Yeah. He did what he was supposed to do. What we fell in love with were the intangibles when we heard him during this interview. And you can see the competitive nature when he says, yeah, well, I'm out here with all these other guys, but we can play football in the Midwest. We can play football in Notre Dame. And I'm like, okay, like, it's something in him where he's ready to compete. He's ready to galvanize guys around him and get to the play at a high level. And for me, that's what stood out the most. I'm like, yes, Notre Dame needs that. I can't wait to get that in that locker room. I could care less where you place. That's what we need. And like you talked about it, that's what stood out the entire time.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Elite 11 has changed a lot over 20 years. It depending on when you were at it, or, you know, sometimes I think it was with less technology, you know, 15 years ago, certainly, you know, they didn't have like the breakaway data station like they do now. And that was the first night you were watching guys, they're hooked up to all these cameras and everything thrown around. You know, like Dilfer brought his pro day drill where it's basically almost like a 2-minute down the field. They have their rail shot challenge now, which they used to, you know, they had different kinds of things, but like back a little before Malik, but in that same Malik's time frame when he was a high schooler, you know, they would take him out usually to Oregon, where Nike's in Nike's backyard, and they would do these like Team RWB, which is like, you know, old military guys who will put them through different kinds of challenges to maybe expose some of their character and different things, but necessarily aren't really, aren't about playing football, but they're way different, right? Like way different, right? And so what I remember the one year, and this might be, maybe it's a year, maybe these kids are a year older than you, Malik, maybe they're the same. I don't remember. It was the Josh Rosen class. And it was a bunch of
I remember. I was there as a counselor, and we had to run through the woods.
Okay, so that was yeah. So you will remember this. So this is about 2 hours from. For them, it was a 2-hour bus ride from the Nike like headquarters, which is this gorgeous place in the middle of Oregon, and they went to this lake, and they had all these things. And I just remember, like, Josh Rosen actually, you know, he grew up near the beach here. Like, he handled it really well. Jarrett Stidham. So Bryce Petty was with you, right?
I had Kay Castillo. Oh.
The counselors. Was Bryce Petty a counselor that year?
Yeah, Bryce Petty, because he did a real good job during that time.
Yeah, he did a really good. He was like a Navy SEAL. Bryce Petty is built like a
huge.
linebacker, and he's, I think, more of an outdoorsman. So like Bryce Petty is like lifting up, like sacks of potatoes and whatever else they had doing, right?
By himself. Like
By
we're all
himself.
like partnering and trying to use our brains together.
Yeah, he's like Paul Bunyan out there, right? So it's funny. So that year, but what I remembered, we're in like, it's also, it's Mosquito Haven or whatever. But at one point I remember Quincy Avery and I were like going towards the lake, and all of a sudden it was like, I don't know what these things were. It was like we each got stung like 5 times by some like locusts or something. It was just, but the point of this long story is you'd get a bunch of quarterbacks. Maybe they weren't raised in anything like this outdoor setting. So you're throwing them in a completely different environment. I forgot who it was. It might have been one of the DeAndres, who was a Florida kid. It might have been DeAndre Johnson or DeAndre Francois. I forget which. One of those kids, I think, had never been near the ocean or never been, wasn't a swimmer. And so I think you're putting them in really, I think one of the days, though, like they've done a bunch of stuff where it's like you're in the ocean and you're this. Well, certain kids are really comfortable swimming. Certain people aren't, and it's just like they didn't do that this year. They don't do some of that. They may have taken them to do hot yoga, but so, all of that to say, it's not like they're in shoulder, and their pads and they're not being rushed and they're trying to put them in uncomfortable environments. But at the same point, it's still largely a camp in shorts and t-shirts throwing to receivers who usually aren't your receivers.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, so what is your opinion of the DJ Langway situation? Everybody was saying he was 9 for 17 in the red zone, but the caveat was that the receivers were washed and they were the last ones of the day. How much does that play into the narrative of, trying to turn DJ Langway into a 5-star,
It's a good question. You watched him. He's a big, strong man. He, like the release, I think, was something I remember asking some of the coaches about it, because you notice it. It's like his left leg. It's almost like he's throwing like in front of a wall, where it's like it doesn't seem quite natural. And then I think some of the guys said, that's something that they're going to have to, keep refining with him. There was a lot of stuff you'd see you really liked. And also I think part of it is, in a game setting, I think he's going to probably shine, as opposed to in this setting, again, different receivers, more static. The one thing that I noticed at one point that I was talking to one of the coaches, and we both kind of picked up on it. You're not out there with a helmet on. And so you see facial expressions. And I remember in 7-on-7, I think he threw a pick, and you could almost feel like the look on his face of like, he kind of was wearing it, because, how do you respond to it? And I don't think I wouldn't try to read that much into, he's not going to be a terrific college quarterback, because at the end of the day, as a playmaker, you can see it, but you really can't see it, right? I don't know what Cam Newton would have looked like if he was in those drills. I know what he looked like at Auburn, though, right? So
like at Auburn.
and
That's like Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson was right there with Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence during that time, and nobody really, had too much to say about him. And then he turns out to be the 5th pick of the draft. So
yeah, and look, the guy who led the Eagles to the Super Bowl, I mean, like I've seen him as a counselor at Elite 11. He shines when he's in front of people. Like, he's got a ton of presence to him. When he was 19, he was like he was 30, but I'm not sure how great he would have looked at times in some of that. Like, I think he would have, he's got plenty of arm, but there are certain guys who are just like, everything looks really accurate. And I do think, and I catch myself on this, and I mentioned this in the CJ Carr story, where you remember the wow throw, or you remember the really bad throw. You're like, ooh, that was, and I was like, I'm not seeing, there's 20 quarterbacks out there, and they're going at different times. And a lot of times they're going in different places. Like, there was an accuracy challenge. It was on a different field. And so, I don't even know how many throws they probably make over 3 days. I mean, it's probably, I don't know if it's 1,000, it's probably over 500, or somewhere in that range, but you don't see all of them. You can't, unless you're like following just one kid everywhere along the way. So what I try to remind myself, and I don't always do it, is just take a lot of this with a grain of salt, because you may have seen the greatest throw ever, and that may be the greatest throw they ever made, and they don't replicate that much. Or you may have seen one of the, like, I don't know for what reason the kid didn't have a good grip on the ball, or maybe the receiver just, got out of his break really slow, and it messed up the timing or whatever, and it looks really bad, because it's always, we're judging the quarterback. We're not judging the guy he's throwing to. And so I think that's the part where it's like, okay, let's pump the brakes a little on all this.
Once again, Bruce Feldman, the Athletic, joins us right here. Let's have some fun, Bruce. Man, when you on with Bucky Brooks and Daniel Jeremiah, that was one of the most enjoyable podcasts that I've listened to. The college football draft was absolutely amazing. And I thought it was interesting because I appreciate the fact that you guys went the direction you decided to go with your picks, because it flew in the face of the two defensive guys that are ruling college football right now. Like, it would be easy to take Kirby, Nick, but the direction you guys went, especially with what you said about the number one pick, Lincoln Riley. And Malik has been like, Malik said it yesterday during the show. He's like, Lincoln Riley can walk into a quarterback's house and say, look, Heisman, NFL. And it's like, what else do you say if you're a quarterback other than, okay, yeah, I want to go play and learn under you. So with him being that first pick, I think the only guy that I really took issue with, and I think Bucky Brooks brought it up because he was really impressed with the job that James Franklin did at Vanderbilt, which was a good job. In my opinion, I think there's been plenty of opportunities for Penn State to take that next step, and they haven't. And I don't know, James Franklin just wouldn't be in my top 5. But I think the direction you guys went with the top 5 was actually excellent.
Thanks. Look, it's subjective. It's funny because it was also DJ put us on the spot. I mean, I'm pretty sure Bucky didn't know, and I definitely didn't know. And so on my last pick, I thought I went with, and whatever, we had 15 guys after Saban and Kirby, or 12 guys. So it's 14 guys in general. And I was like, yeah, I went with Chris Kleiman from K-State, who I definitely think is a really good coach. But afterwards I went back and looked at my top 25 rankings for the coaches rankings we do at the Athletic, and I actually had Lance Leipold from Kansas ranked above him. And I probably, in retrospect, I'd take a mulligan and probably put Lance Leipold maybe a tick above him, just because the guy won a bunch of national titles at D3, then goes to Buffalo, where they have never been very good, got him in the top 25, then goes to Kansas, where they have been the worst program in Power 5, and he got him into the top 25 and got him respectable and got him to a bowl game really in a short amount of time, which is amazing. So it's tricky because you sometimes you outsmart yourself in the moment, and maybe I did a little there, but it's a fun exercise to have.
Did you feel like, just in the conversation, it seemed like you guys, it just seemed like Dabo just kept sliding down the board. He was like that one highly thought of guy in the NBA draft that you look at all the measurables and you're like, this kid is really good. And you look up, it's on pick 6 or 7. You're like, he's still on the board? Like, what's wrong? And it's like, Dabo.
He threw Timmy.
So. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So do you think the job that Dabo, how do you think he's viewed by most people? Right? Do you think do people think he caught lightning in a bottle, had 2 great quarterbacks, or do they just look at his totality and say, yo, he's a really good college football coach?
He is a really good, you don't win national titles. It's hard to win national titles, and especially to win more than one. So I give him a ton of credit for that. I think he is the CEO culture setter. I give him credit for bringing Brent Venables in, who is a really good play caller on the defensive side of the ball, and he got them significantly better. He really created and remade Clemson, because Clemson long before, I mean, I'm older than you guys, but even really before I was anywhere close to working in college sports, Clemson had a national title, but it had been a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And he resurrected that program. So he deserves a ton of credit. I think where in the way that DJ had kind of couched the framework of the conversation of like, if you were building this program or whatever, like there's some things like Dabo has not been very involved at all, more so than or less so than any other Power 5 coach I can think of in the transfer portal piece of this. And that is a very big deal. Like, so I think he's held to certain things. I do like that he hit the reset button to go. He knew he had a problem. His offense had grown stale, and he grabbed Garrett Riley, Lincoln Riley's brother from TCU. And I think that was a bold move, and I think it was a smart move. Short of that, I feel like this program feels like it's been losing momentum. So we'll see how Garrett does, and we'll see if he can pump new life into Clemson. It's not like they were bad. They won 21 games the last 2 years, but they've definitely taken a step back from where they were before that, but they were at the mountaintop before. So, interesting times is, there. And certainly with with FSU and the ACC, I feel like Mike Norvell's gained on them, but he certainly hasn't overtaken them. We'll see. Is this the year with Jordan Travis that they do?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's interesting because I remember last year when you talked to us, you said the difference between Notre Dame and the top teams are really outside at the skill positions, right? And of course, they need a quarterback, skill positions. And I think Garrett Riley may be able to reignite which was a pretty good skill position at wide receiver. You look at the NFL.
Think of those guys. I mean, they're they're big athletes. I mean, go way back to DeAndre Hopkins. I don't even know way back, but whether it's Hunter Renfrow. I mean, there was a bunch of playmakers out there. T. Higgins. I mean, there's guys who are shining in the NFL.
Yeah.
But it dried up to the point where they had a bunch of big receivers who were big recruits who I don't think lived up to quite what the hype was. Now, how much was that? Was the system got stale? How much was that where maybe there wasn't the same chemistry with DJ Uiagalelei as there certainly was with Deshaun Watson or Trevor Lawrence, or even before that? Like, people forget how good of a college quarterback Taj Boyd was. So, I think it's recapturing all of that, but no doubt, like if you put, half of the group of receivers that Clemson had in that decade, previously, in South Bend, maybe Notre Dame is a national title team.
One question before we let you go, Bruce. I don't know if you're a bet man or not, but Sam Hartman produced 6 1,000-yard receivers at Wake Forest. This is Notre Dame. Can he produce one at Notre Dame this year?
Oh, that's a good question.
If I sent you to Vegas, with my money to place the bet.
All right, so before I do this, you play the odds maker and give me who would be the two favorites to do this, and it can't be a tight end.
I would say the two favorites would be Jaden Thomas and Tobias Merriweather. And I would have probably one of the freshmen as a dark horse at about, let's say I would put the odds for Tobias Merriweather at about 7-1.
I will put this for Chancey Stuckey out there that they will have a better chance of one of those two guys averaging 20 yards a catch, which I think, is like, and it all starts to blur together, but Will Fuller is around Malik. How far back? When did he, get there?
It's about 10 years ago.
Yeah, about 10 years ago. We haven't had a Will Fuller since 10 years ago.
I know. That's the point. Like, that's the, he was a big play. Like, he's the guy that a bunch of these other programs have. Now, he's not all they have, but he is that guy. And that's what I feel like they gotta, you got to recruit Will Fuller. It's hard to develop that. I'm not saying you don't, develop it, but like to be that explosive, those are, because I feel like they have some of those explosive athletes. They're, in a different way, they're an edge rusher, or, Cam Hart is certainly a super explosive defensive back and athlete. But I feel like that's the one thing. If you can get a guy who can average 20 yards a catch, and also maybe, he doesn't have to be 1,000-yard receiver, but if he's, 40 catches for 850 yards, that is opening everything else up to me.
You know what? He's just set the new bar. Left. We might have to set it at 850 and say, okay, if they can get a guy at 850, one of these youngsters, we're cooking with grease at the wide receiver position. Once again, go follow Bruce Feldman on social media. You can see him each and every day dropping knowledge over the summer in college football and recruiting at the Athletic, and then catch him during the season, man. Fox Sports, Big Noon Kickoff Show, and sidelines for all the big games. Bruce, look, we forgot this. There is one issue that Malik and I have, because Malik calls him Mr. Third Base, and that's Ryan Day. Ryan Day got a lot of love from you guys on that podcast, and Malik was like, nah. And I'm telling you, man, if he gets pounded by Jim Harbaugh one more time, how do you think that eventually plays out?
Not well for him, because the crazy thing with that is he was a field goal away from probably winning the national title. They had Georgia on the ropes. Their field goal kicker didn't make the kick. I think they would have smashed TCU. I mean, they are built to beat anybody. The problem is there's another program that is built solely to beat them. And I got to admit, like, I don't know, I've covered college football for 25 plus years, the recency bias thing is a real thing, but one of the most mind-blowing, mind-opening, whatever things that I can remember was last November, being in Columbus, being on the sideline late in the game. It was a TV timeout, and I was like just trying to help Tom Rinaldi out, who was doing the sideline and the broadcast. And I said, Tom, we were on the Michigan sideline. I said, turn around. And you looked at the entire front row in Columbus, and it was people of all ages. I mean, like, there were little kids, there were grandmas, and they all looked like they were in disbelief. They all looked like they were angry and hurt. It was just like, it was an amazing scene, because I don't think there was anybody in that building other than 120 people who are on the Michigan sideline who were like, we're going to kick their butts. There's no doubt about we're getting revenge. And the Michigan guys took it to them so badly, especially in the second half. And it's mind-blowing, because there was no Blake Corum. And before the game, Donovan Edwards, who torched them, had a cast on his hand. And you're like, how much can they get out of him? And so I think all of that is certainly put on Ryan Day. Fair or unfair, that's the job, right? The guy you followed, who still kind of lingers around. His son-in-law's on the staff, and Urban Meyer, as famously will say, I was 7-0 against that other school. And now if you lose 3 in a row, I don't know what they would do, because to me, it's like a different deal than what's going on with Jimbo Fisher, where they'd have to pay him like $90 million, and Jimbo has had a long time. Ryan Day has been like wildly successful if you look at his record. It's just the last 2 games against the team. He could, what's nuts, I think, is, let's say they did make the field goal and they did win the national title, but then he lost, 45-21. I bet you there'd still be a big chunk of fans who'd be like, yeah, he can't beat Michigan though. And national title or not, I think they would be like, yeah, he's winning with Urban's players, or he's whatever. It's a unique problem. It's a problem I think a lot of coaches wish they could have. I mean, but it's interesting, because at the same time, like Urban was, had losses to like mediocre Purdue and Iowa, where, it's like he dominated Michigan, but then he would, they would stub their toes. It's hard to stay perfect in all this. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, I still think Ryan Day is an excellent coach. But that's the circle it in red and green and every other color for this season, just because of what's happened the last 2 years.
Yeah, college football, especially in coaching, perception is reality, right? You just explained it perfectly. Look, the perception, you can say what you want to say. They beat Clemson. Marcus Freeman turned things around. Notre Dame fans are not going to forget Marshall and Stanford. It's just stuck there. Like everything got better. They win the Gator Bowl, and fans are still stuck with Marshall and Stanford. Not realizing that, hey, Brian Kelly was 8-5 his first 2 seasons. Marcus Freeman was 9-4. So, like you said, it's going to be a tall task, patient, develop the identity, and get players outside that can make plays. And hopefully, Notre Dame, they can get to the national championship and make some hay and get off of this 35-year skid that we hear about in the chat every day that we do a show. It's been 35 years. Hopefully, that can come to an end soon. Bruce Feldman, CFB on Twitter. Go follow him. One of the best writers and one of the big proponents of the Lucky Lefty podcast. Even anytime we can get him on, wealth of knowledge. Bruce, we appreciate you getting up early with us. Man, enjoy the rest of your week. And man, can't wait. It's almost under 60 days to opening kickoff.
Yeah, we got media days coming up in like 2 weeks, and to me, that's like the unofficial sign of training camp is about to be here. So it's a great time of year. I used to, as a little kid, I used to kind of have bittersweet feelings about August and September because I knew football was about to start, but I also knew school was about to start, and I hated school. But I don't have to go to class anymore, and I'd still get football, so that's okay.
That's Bruce Feldman right here on the Lucky Lefty podcast. Thank you so much for giving us time today, Bruce.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Once again, the great Bruce Feldman joins us today. Follow him right now, Bruce Feldman CFB on social media. Hey, bro, great content. Sam Hartman, CJ Carr, Marcus Freeman, identity. He gave us a lot, Left. He gave us a lot.
He definitely did, and you always can appreciate somebody that insider knowledge and drop a couple of gems on the perspective that we've been trying to expand on, especially when it comes to the fortune telling of what we want some of these quarterbacks to look like, and for the fans to know that we're just not gassing this up as Notre Dame fans. We got people out there that's really seeing it from the bigger perspective and noticing that Notre Dame is making the right steps to having an offense and having a team that is looking to be more respectable on the national stage.
So we gave you the defensive storylines. We have one left to end the show. Storyline number 4. Who in the heck is going to sack the quarterback? Who is going to sack the quarterback for Notre Dame? Left, will it be a collection of guys, or will somebody step forward and be the next Isaiah Foskey on that defensive line?
I don't know, honestly. And I think that's it's a good and bad thing, because we know that we have talent. Now, to see that crystallize itself is our hopes.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no Isaiah Foskey. There is no Chase Young. There is no Khalil Mack that we can say preseason is the staple. So I don't know. I hope Jordan Botelho can prove us wrong. That's what I hope.
Oh, man, look, I will say collectively, I believe in the athletic ability of this defensive line more than I believe in the athletic ability of the defensive line last year.
Well, what do you think? Well, what do you think about what Justin Scott thinks about the production in the D line as a top-rated lineman? Not specifically Justin Scott, the individual, but the weight of the status of a Justin Scott And his reflection, he's probably thinking the same thing on our defense. Who's going to be the guy that's sacking guys? Who's going to be my counter co-star? Who's going to be the guy that's enticing me to want to come into Notre Dame? They don't have an Isaiah Fauski that's got 25 sack leaders. So who am I looking over there for? Jason Andre? I haven't even seen those guys play for real yet. Jordan Botello? Who am I looking at? Riley Mills? So I think that's where Clemson sees so much success in D lineman because they have 4 All-Americans.
That's true. That's true.
It's a 1, 3, 4. So if I'm a young D lineman, I'm like, shoot, all 4? There's only so many tackles in a game you can get. There's only so many plays ran in a game. And all 4 are All-Americans. That's a possibility that you can't show in recruiting. You can't give me no photo shoot, no tour of the school better than you having 4 All-Americans at D-line. That's the proof. That's the recruiting. So in snagging some of this top 5 closers on the D-line, they want to look at stuff like that. Because the flip side of it would to be taking guys that are cast-offs that are very talented, just didn't work out in their situation, but we don't operate like that from a transfer standpoint. So we either got to nail the 5 stars coming out of high school or nail the top guys going into the transfer portal. We don't give ourselves too much wiggle room where we getting cast-offs from Texas or LSU or Georgia like a SC does. Where your margin of error is a little higher. Our margin of error is very, very thin line, you know, and so you can't be wrong on them. So a transfer like Brandon Joseph, for instance, doesn't look great to future recruits because you got to be slam dunk because it's hard enough to get in there as a transfer. Thornhill, I mean, what's his name? The safety from Oklahoma State.
Thomas Harper.
Hard to tell. He been hurt. What safety's gonna think that a transfer is there? Dang, he can't even get healthy going over there. I thought that was a good place for him. So Marcus Freeman can only do so much on the presentation side, the selling the dream side, the taking you through the open house tour. He can only do so many open house tours before he's like, okay, what's the municipalities looking like? What's the electricity like on a yearly basis? Because the open house is cool, but the open house is nothing in it. It's the structure.
Yeah.
I'm showing you the structure. Justin Scott's all right. What a nice couch at I can lay out on. Because I'm just seeing a nice living room. Big spaces. I can see where a TV would be, where the fireplace would be. But right now, I'm just seeing a nice building. He go to Michigan. They got the game room set up. They got a little secret room where you can hang out. They got the kitchen, the refrigerator fully stocked, looking like cribs in there. He like, oh, okay, I can eat some good meals over here. If I want to chill, I go to a pool table. We just showing the open house. Like, look, we got the biggest house on the block. Fill it up. We got parties here. It sounds good. Property values low. It sounds good. But ain't nothing in the crib. You in Beverly Hills living on an air mattress. So it's like, we got to have a little bit more. We got to fill that room up with first round picks. You know, Cardi B said she flexed with $150,000 pictures on the wall. That's a flex. What's our $150,000 pictures in the Notre Dame mansion? Ben Morrison? That's a good little picture to hang up on the wall. That's some value. But we're not a museum where we just got $1,000 or $2,000 pictures, $100,000 pictures. We're supposed to be a house that you can live in, not a museum, not an open house. You want to live there. Just because it's the best house on the block, don't mean it's the best stay on the block either. But they say the Renaissance Inn is not bad, even though I'd rather stay at the Hamptons. But the Renaissance will do. That's what we got to get better at. Put some more fluff in the house. We just good realtors. We can sell you the building, but we can't sell you what's in it yet. You know, we can add a hot tub to the back. You know,
so basically we got kids coming to look at models.
Yeah, we're looking at models. Okay, you can take floor plan A.
Models that incomplete.
Yeah. But you go to Nick Saban mansion. Oh, that thing is decked out. Look like the Heisman house. Every year they got another one coming in there. Oh, where I move in? I move in next to Derrick Henry's room, old room. Amari Cooper's old room. I can stay in there. What about Devontae Smith? That thing fresh. He probably still that house busting. Rent cheap. You know, you get Medicare there. You know, they got doctors. You know, you get the full thing.
Yeah.
And you get take-home plates. So Nick Saban is like, man, I'm chilling. You know, you talk to my people down at the front desk, they handle you. You go get your amenities. You're gonna have your sauna, your steam room in there, your workout room at the and then you go, you know, chill in the TV room because we got the latest movies and cool stuff for y'all. Man, you just live here, man. You cool. This is the Heisman house. We go to floor plan A, floor plan B, floor plan C. You got a couple options down the road. I mean, it's all nice, but it's just nothing in it. We got some nice stuff on the walls, but we need something to feel like we live in there.
Yeah, eventually, it's like a realtor that shows a lot of houses but never closes on one.
Like what? Michael Jordan still trying to close on that crazy mansion he trying to sell in North Carolina with the full gym, authentic hardwood from the NBA itself.
You can't sell stuff like that. It's like dudes that get these custom pieces made. They spend all this money on this custom jewelry, and then no one else can wear it. You customize it with your initials.
Yeah,
the only value it has are the loose diamonds. You didn't spend $250,000, and now resale you might get 40. Maybe.
That's what we pushing the kids. Come on, man. Take the. It's like you it devalues when you drive it off the lot. Come on now. I think we have the ability to be better because it's a choice.
Mm.
We can fill up the house easy. What? We got the money. Oh, what you need? You need twin bunks, or you just need a king size? We can do that tomorrow.
You know what? Sam Anderson just put up an interesting point that goes right with this. Thank you, Sam, as always. Freeman has to take control of defensive recruiting. The guy was an NFL linebacker. That don't make a difference. Let's take Marcus Freeman is on the island going up against a whole Michigan staff that is together. So it's easy to say, yeah, Marcus Freeman needs to take over and go up against entire staffs
by himself.
Like, and then if he doesn't get the kid, it's on Marcus Freeman. That's not how it works.
Even though he's trying to take responsibility for it.
It's just not how it works in recruiting. It takes entire staffs to recruit the best players in the nation. It's not, man, Nick Saban is not just sitting there by himself with his magic wand in December. Like, okay, give me that kid, give me that kid, give me that kid. His recruiting staff is he has 70 people in a recruiting office left. Not his coaches, 17 people on staff. That's the foundation of recruiting at Alabama. 17. And then it gets to the coaches. And everybody gets on board. If you want them to close, make it a fair fight. And unfortunately, for a lot of these 5-star kids, it's not a fair fight right now. Not fair for Marcus Freeman, but he's in the ring. He's in the ring fighting. So, Sam, I understand your frustration. But hey, Roger Dodger, man, resident USC fan, that's what I've been saying. Indy needs a bigger recruiting department. How about get one? The recruiting department was Tommy Reese's father. Think about that. The recruiting department was Tommy Reese's father. And his expertise is scouting in the NFL. Why is he the director of high school recruiting? He's an NFL scout. So hopefully, with the new hire, they will go ahead and support him with a staff under him, and he can have a profound effect on Notre Dame recruiting moving forward.
And he's doing a pretty decent job now. It's not poo-poo on that. I mean, being in the top 10 or 8 or however have you, and you got to factor in the fact that anybody really good that commits to us, they drop their star. I still trip over the Jack Larson thing. So we're really playing semantics here. Because without all the stuff that we're saying and pressing needs to be better and all the issues, you're working against a lot of different things also. How many guys have we taken that they just dropped their stars, dropped our class? That's not Marcus Freeman's fault. They just some haters. We can't look at them doing that and then be like, oh, that's Marcus Freeman's fault. So it's Marcus Freeman's fault. He gets the 5-star to commit. 6 months later, the 5-star got his options open. He goes somewhere else and he gets bigger. He grows in stars. He wasn't even a 5-star when he was with us. And then he goes to Alabama. He's a 5-star now. Come on now. Now he with Will Anderson and they done bumped his stars up off. We had him for months. He was like, oh, we found one. It was, oh, we found one guy. Oh, we got on him early because we found one guy because Marcus went down to IMG amongst all the beasts and was like, I want him, and got him. When he was a 4-star, oh, he's a man, underrated talent. Marcus Freeman, man, great job going down into the SEC country and snagging him one. Oh, it's going to be da-da-da-da-da-da. Next thing you know, they drop his stars. We dropping in the rankings. Now he's like, oh, I'm not a 5-star anymore. Not Alabama calling. It's like this is jokes. This is jokes. We had a kid from Colorado, kid that committed to Colorado. Underrated kid. Oh, so fast. They found this do-it-all returner specialist. Oh, he's going to change Notre Dame, 4-3, all this other stuff. Deion called him, he all of a sudden a 5-star too? How?
Look, to me, he said you can't compare Bama and Georgia to Notre Dame. Where are the wins? We have to change the narrative. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Ain't got nothing to do with wins. Malik says it all the time. Notre Dame is who they are because that's who they want to be.
They want to be.
They refuse to invest at a championship level in the football program. We don't have to talk NIL. We just talk coaching, protecting the coaches, and building a staff. Bill Reese was your director of recruiting. There's no way you can tell me that's investment in the recruiting department at Notre Dame. You can't sell that to me. I'm not that silly. You can't tell me that and say we're investing in recruiting at Notre Dame like other schools. You can't tell me that. And that has nothing to do with wins. Zero. With nothing around them. This comment, cognitive dissonance on this issue because we praise Chad Bowden, Dre Brown, and others, but when things aren't going in these ways because MF is alone. The fact that Dre Brown and Chad have to get praises for recruiting and they're not coaches, they're administrators. That's the problem. That's the problem. They're doing the job of 5 people.
That's like a mirror if he's getting credit for sealing in 3 or 4 5 stars.
Chad is
the player director.
Chad is supposed to be administrating.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff Chad has to do, he should not have to do. That's the point. So yes, Chad and Dre should be praised. But the fact that they get praised further identifies in certain areas, Marcus Freeman is alone. Because why are these two? Why are these two the ones having to do this? Didn't we hire coaches for that? Don't we have a rest of a defensive staff for that? So watch. They hired the new guy from West Virginia. Are they going to give him a staff? Are they going to give him 4 or 5 guys to help? Or is he going to be a loner? In this modern day of college football where everybody else has 30, 40 people on staff in the office working for recruiting.
Yeah.
Chad and Dre are stars because they do the jobs of multiple people, and they should have to. They shouldn't have to. Period.
And you see people talk about, is it the location? Columbus ain't no much better than South Bend. What do you mean? It's damn near the same weather. Columbus ain't no great area weather to be in like it's Miami. Like it's in the middle of Vegas. Hell, have you been to Clemson? You talk about the boonies.
I have not. It's in the boonies?
It's the boonies.
Wow.
Middle of absolute nowhere. So no, it's not the location. Dabo pulled 2 championships out the woods. The woods. Ain't no city around Clemson. Come on, man. It ain't no location. It's optics. It's perspective. Them kids if they think it's good enough, they gonna play in the weather if it's gonna take them to where they want to go.
Left, like you've been saying, bro.
Boy, playing in the hot ass Alabama weather. Are you crazy? All them brothers ain't talking about no weather if you commit to Alabama. That's the last thing you're thinking about.
What's that?
Alabama commit is the weather or location.
What's the famous saying from Field of Dreams, that movie? If you build it, they will come.
Yeah. You think I wish a Georgia commit would say, Caleb Downs at Alabama would say, yeah, I committed to Alabama because it's a great school and the location and the weather is just perfect. What? Caleb Downs said, I don't care if Alabama was located on the moon. Alabama's going to take me to the stars. That's why I need to.
Dude, I'm glad Sam Anderson pointed out Duke basketball. It's a true story. True story. The Zion, Trey, RJ Barrett class, Coach K had nothing to do with that class. That entire class was John Shire. The last, I'm talking, dude, you confirm this with Jordan Cornette, multiple people that I talked to. The last 5 to 6 years, Duke recruiting has been John Shire. And
Nolan
assistants under him.
got his hand in there too.
I said, and the assistants under him.
Yeah, for sure.
They were the face. Not Coach K. Coach K knew it was time for him to move on. He just had to groom John Shire to take that move to the next seat. But as far as recruiting, I need to pass this on. These are the dudes. They're the ones that don't get the job done. Coach K gets the credit, though. Oh, Coach K, he could put together, he puts together a fabulous recruiting class. Coach K ain't doing nothing.
Hey, well, he has a part of that, though.
No. Coach K sits there and closes after John Shire and Nolan Smith do all the leg work. That's all he does. On the official visit, he closes.
Okay, but that's a huge piece, though, because Nick Saban does the same thing. Nick Saban closed on Tommy. He wasn't even there.
I agree.
He wasn't even. He closed on Tommy and said,
but
"Look,
Nick Saban can do that, dude. You know how many Duke players does Coach K have working on staff, bro?
Oh, all of them probably.
There's about 20 of them. About 20 of them. 20.
Yeah.
That's the point. Allow your coach to do what he's supposed to do, which is close. But you can't have that dude close, be the lead recruiter, be the positional recruiter, be this, be that. Come on, man.
That's Marcus Freeman. He's the lead.
What are we doing?
The man that's gonna call you every day to be like, "How was your mom's spaghetti today? Did you sit in the front of the class, try to get you with the non-football talk? He got to fly everywhere, and then if he don't get him, it's his fault. It's crazy."
Great example. Deuce Knight, 5-star, 25 quarterback. Recently said his top 2 schools are Notre Dame and Tennessee. Guess who has the strongest relationship with Deuce Knight?
Our lead recruiter.
It's not Jared Parker, not the offensive coordinator.
Not the guy calling plays for the man.
It's not Marcus Freeman. It's Gino Guidugli. Gino is doing the leg work. Giving Marcus Freeman the opportunity to close. But Gino is the foundation of the relationship that has a kid from Mississippi saying, you want to talk about location? A kid from the southern tip of Mississippi loves Notre Dame, bro. Said he loved South Bend when he came. And it was snowing. So you talk about location? Man, relationships, man. You have to have relationships. You have to be willing to invest in recruiting, man. You have to be willing to build a staff to support your coaches. Because everybody on your staff is not going to be good at recruiting. They're just not. They're not. Gino, if you watch him, go watch the Cincinnati videos last year. You can tell why Gino can recruit his tail off. Just watch how he talks to the offensive players at Cincinnati, defensive players, how they're drawn to him, how he cracks jokes. He's personable. It's easy to him. You see how he can relate to Deuce Knight. I see why Deuce Knight. He didn't make Deuce Knight stand on the sideline with the rest of the recruits. You know how he made Deuce Knight feel special? He told him, come stand with me behind the huddle. Right here, so you can hear every call. It's those little small things, man, the nuances of recruiting that comes from other people besides the head coach that make a difference in building a relationship, man. And hopefully, going into this new era, with what Amir Carlisle is doing with player development, with the new hire from West Virginia, and hopefully what he'll be allowed to do, giving a staff and expanding the recruiting and supporting Marcus Freeman and the coaches, they'll make the jobs a lot more efficient and easier for everybody involved. Chad and Dre are stars because they do way too much. And I'm not their agents, but they're probably vastly underpaid for the job they do. As Malik has been saying for the entire summer, Notre Dame is where they are because that's where they want to be. Because money is not an issue.
Yeah, and that's the conundrum of Notre Dame in general. Y'all can make a change. I got the bread. What's the holdup?
You can't build out a staff of 10?
You can't build an NIL. You can't buy out a coach. You can't get a head man some more money. We can't add a necessary and effective changes. We want to peddle money through different buildings on campus and an indoor that's, man, listen, it's a choice. And we'll continue to speak about the misguided passion of the choice we make, because it's not like we need an outside hand of God to help this program. Everything is internal. That's why we independent now.
That's it.
On TV, we make the most in Carroll. We make the most as a standalone school. You other teams got to join conferences to get some cheese, which makes it even more audacious that you have everything you need and lack so much and leave so much to be desired. Why? And other teams can't understand it. That's why they're like, y'all might as well join us. Problems. Obviously, if you join the Big Ten, we're like, no, we're good. We make more money than y'all. Oh, we're trying to get on NBA. we got everything we need: radio, TV, internet access, jumbotron, money to blow, money to spend.
Yeah,
and go crazy. You building something new every year. Slowly taking over South Bend every year. There's never been a year that I've been in Notre Dame since I graduated where it wasn't a construction cone, truck, U-Haul on campus. They still doing stuff to the stadium. So that's the most damning thing about Notre Dame. Other teams have genuine concerns. The Raging Cajuns, they probably looking where their next funding check is going to come from. That's why they have to take beatings every year. That's why they got to go play at Alabama. They need a little bit of that funding. Why do you think Ohio State's tax write-offs are so huge when they play these small schools for 6 weeks before they play in conference? They got to dole out money for other teams that need it. That's why our schedule doesn't have softies, because we don't need anybody to pay us. So everything that is our issue is our own fault. That's why the things are so funny when they come out. When you start seeing written speeches from Marcus Freeman, you start to see these random dry snitching emails that nobody asked for. All these over explanations that nobody is giving questions. You give us more questions to ask you when you making these obvious things. It's like, hold on now. Y'all could have, come on, y'all could have been had an NIL collective. Why y'all telling me that good stewardship? I don't. Now I got to ask about where this is coming from. Come on now. We done hired the right coach, but I see there's a head coach of offense. When did we start doing that? Oh, and then you hiring his dad to oversee all the stuff that a head coach would probably want to be a part of, and then you not buying the coaches, but the buyout is pocket change. It ain't no secret we got bread. I think that's what it is. We claim broke, but be the fattest pockets. And they try to put a wool over our eyes. Oh, that $2 million just too much. I don't know why, they would even propose something so preposterous. That $2 million for a buy, that's a lot. Let's do a 750. What about that? Let's do just 500,000. Cut us a deal, good steward. Cut us a deal, good steward. That's why. And then when they don't come, I don't know why, man. We tried to negotiate at the table, try to get us, because they know you got the cheese. They said, "Oh, you playing with the bread?" No, never mind. What Eddie Ludwig said, oh, never mind, bro. Y'all not even serious. Y'all done had me fooled in the suite, and I was eating all type of hors d'oeuvres and delicious treats. I don't even like hockey for real, but I was enjoying my time there. And then when we get to negotiating table, you done slid back the paper. I thought this was reasonable. This was the market. $2 million. I'm like, okay, I'm about to step my game up. $2 million, cool. You come back as a $500,000 rebuttal. What? Coach Freeman probably looked at the paper and said, "Hold on, that I didn't know he was going to offer you $500,000."
My bad, dog.
My bad, Andy. I thought we was on the same page. They, you know how they are. They just. So Andy was like, "Wait a minute, this is Notre Dame. There's pots of gold laying around this campus everywhere. I'm asking for a measly, Beasley, Weasley $2 million buyout. My school already said I'm gone. Look, my school cool, but they said, okay, you transitioning on to greatness. I gotta go call them and be like, never mind. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. They gonna come back and look at me like, oh, you thought you was gonna get $2 million? Shoot, we could have paid you that. Never to be heard from again. So that's what makes it so frustrating. Starving the man out. Starving him out. But people of Aqua building a relationship with Marcus Freeman, staying in his ear about things. There is upside to look at. But Notre Dame traditionally has had their hand in a lot of things that have been obstacles on a self-driven level. That's all we're saying. It'd be one thing if these other teams were doing things that we couldn't do. If they just, I don't know. I can't think of much of that another team can do that we can't do. I can't think of much. Other than things we choose not to do by NIL, which is cool, but we still have so much more to offer, I think. But it's a disconnect between what I think and what these recruits think. And Marcus Freeman is trying to pull that thing together. Close the gap.
Out here playing tug of war with 6 people on the other side and 2 on our side.
And be like, when?
Right?
Be like, when? We gave y'all the nicest cleats and the hand grippers and all that. You're supposed to win.
Right.
First six.
Right. Right. Great show today, Left. Great show, man. You know what time it is.
Petticoat. Petticoat Junction.
It's time to get petty.
Oh, we did a good job executing.
Are you upset with something?
And fire up the Petticoat Junction train.
I just don't like you.
You don't?
No.
What is today's petty history? Petty Junction.
Petty Junction, Petty Story today brought to you by Onora Whiskey and NoraWhiskey.com. That premium American whiskey, NoraWhiskey.com. Bro, I'm sure you and I will have a conversation offline about this whole affirmative action thing. That took place with the Supreme Court today. I want to talk about that. The pettiness for me is the conversations in these threads that I see in Twitter. And it's like, to me, it's like, I'm shocked that people still think and view human beings the way they view human beings in 2023. I don't know why. I don't know why it shocks me. It shouldn't shock me. I've been on this earth for a pretty good long time right about now, Left. And it shouldn't shock me in 2023. But, bro, it still does. I'm sorry. Not the news, not the vote. But just sitting back and watching like, that's how you really feel? Just about the next man? Like, either way, just as a human being, that's just how you feel.
See, but that's the thing. That's the great.
It's crazy, man.
Shaun, it's the great veil, because at the end of the day, everybody lives by a different set of morals. That's the truth. And it's not surprising because the nature of a thing. You know, if you understand the nature of a thing, there are no surprises. An apple is an apple. And it would always be an apple. An apple don't come out as an apple and try to pretend to be an orange. That's not the nature of the apple. The apple always what? Gonna start right and then get riper and then it's gonna rot. It's not gonna Benjamin Button itself. That's not the nature of an apple. So when it comes to some of these groups out here, it's the nature of the group. They have never, ever, out of their nature, made me believe that you want to see me do better. That's a fool to believe that. Because the truth is, nothing in this life is the same, and that's okay.
Left, man.
That's okay.
I'll be honest, Left. I have a mom that is a dreamer. She always has been. She exposed me to parts of Chicago that 95% of the young kids on the south side of Chicago never knew existed. I'm talking about culturally, educationally, just opened my eyes to this world. And with that, I've always just looked at it like, yo, everybody's different. Everybody has preferences. Everybody has blind spots in life because of where they grow up. They might not see something a certain way because they just didn't have the opportunity to be enlightened, but to have an experience. But at the end of the day, you're a human being. That's it. That's all I can ask. Just as a human being, just, hey, how you doing? I hope you do well. I don't need, other than that, I don't need much left. But here's the kicker, left. And my dad told me this. When my daughter, I don't know if you remember this, when my daughter was going through her college process, it was the pandemic. Remember that? And do you remember when they decided, I think a large majority of schools said that they would no longer wait standardized testing for entry into college? There were a lot of colleges that took a step back and said, hey, we're no longer going to look at SAT and ACT scores. My pops told me then, watch that and watch what it turns into. And it's just unfortunate, man. It's unfortunate, man. You know?
And I'll tell you what.
As a brother, I've just always been, man. I have a heart for people, man. So I'm always a giver. I give. I just love, man. I love to give. I love to pour it to young people. I love to give them my time. If I can give them my resources, that's what I do. That's just what I do, man. I just want people. I want people to be happy. I was that kid that didn't want to go to the corner store by himself, left. You know what I'm saying? You know, when you felt like, man, I want some candy. I didn't want to walk to the corner store by myself. I had to stop by my boy's house, see if he could go. Then I had to stop by my other boy's house to see if he could go. Like, I wanted everybody to come along. You know what I'm saying? If my mom cooked, I told all my boys, hey, come through. Mom made meatloaf. Mom fried chicken. That was me. I wanted everybody.
That's your nature.
Right. I want everybody to be good, man. And that's why I said for me, color, man, I should know better. But at heart, man, I just want everybody to be good, bro. That's it.
Would you buy a pet monkey? Would you buy a pet monkey?
I can't answer that.
Absolutely.
You know, but no. Let me keep it a buck, left. Let me keep it a buck. If I had crazy money, I probably would dibble and dab at some type of animal. Maybe not a monkey.
Specifically not a monkey. Because you know why? Because guess
yes,
what?
I know why. I know, yes.
What? The
nature. Yes.
The nature.
Yes.
It would be cool to own.
Yes.
But guess what, son?
Yes.
Is always gonna be
Absolutely.
How much we want to make Tiger our best.
Yeah.
Tiger thinks he's hungry.
Yeah.
Because that's his nature.
Yeah.
He ain't your pet no more. I tell you that.
Yeah.
You can treat him nice, and they do the bottle feeding, and
yeah. It might not be, you know, and I'm not saying, look, monkey, no. I'm not about to go get a silverback. I'm not gonna get a giraffe.
Hell, a dog.
But you know, I might.
A dog got teeth, Shaun. You gonna put your hand down there to pet a random dog? Absolutely not.
Heck no. But I would probably go get one of the purest bred Rottweilers ever. I'll spend $5,000-6,000. You know what I'm saying?
Still
a dog
down there, and It got teeth.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. It's a dog. So why can't we act like that with everything else? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I don't think anybody would be surprised. I think everybody would be like, okay, I know what I have in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
But we are the world. We are the children. No. That's get y'all messed up out here. And it's fine.
Hey, I blame my mom every time. I hit her up like, this is your fault. You're the dreamer. You poured this into me. This is your fault.
Yeah.
You know. Fortunately, it did not take with my daughter. Because she is out there on the West Coast with like her afro and
And eyes up. And boots
man. It did not take. I'm like, hey. But that We Are the World was funny, bro. That is hilarious.
No way, bro. You be crazy as hell. And that's for more safety than it is for anything else.
Man.
No fool out here, man.
That's crazy, bro. That's crazy. And it's all a facade, too. That's the crazy thing, right? Like to the you get the 3%, and then to the 97%, they give us these facades.
Facades, everything.
That keep us looking at each other crazy. You know.
Nothing wrong. Listen, I don't have a problem with it because it's a safety issue. That's all. It's a safety issue. If you want to be safe, know that nothing on the planet is the same. Everybody lives by different morals, and that's okay. Because if you go in there understanding the nature of a thing, you can never be fooled. You can always keep your eyes on the prize. Let's go back to Marcus Freeman in that defense. The nature of Marcus Freeman is a physicality that he's going to find throughout this season for that defense. With all these facades, who's going to show up in the sack department? Who's going to show up at linebacker? He said the vision is physical. That's the nature of a defense. So, yeah, we might throw some extra blitzes here and there. We might try a couple young guys here and there that got some. But we're going to be physical at some point back in the season. I think that's where we're going to be at, you know.
Hey, man. As always, love on each other, man. Love on each other, especially your people and your neighbors. That's it. Man. I'm not, dude. I promise you, I'm not even tripping on the decision. It's just the things that are being said to each other about the decision is like, that's what my eyes are like. What? Word? That's where we're at?
Hey, listen.
Hey, it's crazy, bro.
It's not where we at, it's where it's been.
Hey, man.
It ain't gone nowhere. Like you said, it's the facades that's been pulling the wool over the eyes.
Man. That's definitely the petty story of the day, bro. And it's not even the decision that came down. It's just, woo, man. Great show. Don't forget, we need you guys to go to CFB Nation. Lock us in. Audio edibles each and every day. We had a great, man, without even going over the IB yesterday, within the first 18 hours you guys supported, we had 1,100 downloads. So you guys are supporting. We're going to keep pushing it, keep letting you guys know to connect to CFB Nation, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. For Left, I'm Shaun Davis. We'll see you tomorrow for another edition of the Lucky Lefty Podcast. You dig?